As you watch this video, your brain is constructing reality around you. But what if I told you that everything you think you know about your mental state could be wrong? What if the voice in your head telling you, "I'm fine," is the same voice that's been lying to you for years? In the next 30 minutes, I will teach you 7 reality testing techniques that could save your sanity. These aren't just psychological exercises. They're emergency protocols for when you can't trust your mind. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete system for verifying your mental state, even when everyone around you is telling you you're crazy. But first, let me tell you about the day I realized I couldn't trust my thoughts. Welcome back to Shadow Psyche, where we expose the daily dark psychology tactics used against you and teach you how to protect yourself. I'm Brian, and over the past 15 years, I've studied how manipulation can alter your perception of reality, including your perception of your mental health. Today, I'm going to reveal the 7 most powerful reality testing techniques that can help you distinguish between genuine mental health concerns and manufactured confusion created by psychological manipulation. These techniques have helped thousands of people reclaim their mental clarity and escape the gaslighting that made them question their sanity. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to test your reality, understand when your perceptions are being distorted by external forces, and have concrete tools to maintain your psychological integrity even under the most sophisticated mental attacks. But first, let me be clear. This information is for protection and self-awareness only. If you're experiencing genuine mental health concerns, please seek professional help. We're not replacing therapy. We're giving you tools to protect yourself while you seek appropriate support. Personal awakening story. 3 years ago, I was in a situation that nearly broke my mind. I worked with a client whose partner had systematically gaslighted for over 2 years. During our sessions, she would describe experiences that seemed entirely rational to me, but she was convinced she was losing her mind. Her partner had convinced her that her memory was failing, that she was becoming paranoid, and that she needed psychiatric medication. He had even convinced her family that she was having a breakdown. But as I listened to her story, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't crazy. She was being deliberately driven to question her sanity. That's when I understood the crucial difference between genuine mental health issues and manufactured mental confusion. One comes from within and can be treated. The other is imposed from outside and requires different tools. The techniques I'm about to share with you came from that realization. They're designed to help you distinguish between real mental health concerns that need professional treatment and artificial confusion created by manipulation, trauma, or psychological warfare. The science of reality testing. Before we dive into the 7 techniques, you need to understand what's happening in your brain when your reality becomes unclear. Reality testing is a fundamental cognitive function, how your mind distinguishes between internal thoughts and external reality, memory and imagination, perception and hallucination. When this function is compromised, either through genuine mental health conditions or through external manipulation, you lose the ability to trust your perceptions. Your brain becomes like a computer with corrupted software. It's still processing information, but can't tell what's real and what isn't. Neuroscientists have identified several brain regions involved in reality testing. The prefrontal cortex evaluates the plausibility of thoughts and memories. The hippocampus distinguishes between real and imagined experiences, and the anterior cingulate cortex monitors conflicts between different sources of information. When you're under stress, sleep-deprived, emotionally overwhelmed, or being psychologically manipulated, these brain regions don't function optimally. This is why people under extreme stress often report feeling crazy or questioning their perceptions. Their reality testing mechanisms are temporarily impaired. The techniques I'm about to teach you work by providing external validation for your internal reality testing processes. They give you objective ways to verify your perceptions when your brain's natural reality testing is compromised. The documentation protocol. The first reality testing technique is the documentation protocol, creating external records of your experiences that can't be altered by memory distortion or external manipulation. This technique recognizes that memory is malleable and can be influenced by suggestion, emotion, and time. Here's how it works. You create multiple types of documentation that capture your experiences in real time before they can be distorted by memory or external influence. This includes written records, audio recordings, photographs, and even physical evidence when possible. The key is to document events and your thoughts and feelings about those events when they occur. This creates a timeline of your mental state that you can review later when you're questioning your perceptions. I worked with a client named Michael, whose boss systematically undermined his confidence through subtle manipulation. Michael started documenting every interaction. He would write brief notes immediately after meetings, save all emails, and even record his voice memos describing his emotional state after difficult conversations. Within 2 weeks, Michael had clear evidence that his boss was using classic gaslighting techniques. The documentation showed a pattern of the boss making commitments in meetings, then later denying those commitments and suggesting Michael had misunderstood or misremembered. The documentation protocol works because it creates external validation for your internal experiences. When someone tries to convince you that something didn't happen or that you're remembering wrong, you have objective evidence to reference. Protection strategy. Start a reality testing journal today. Write down significant interactions, decisions, and emotional states. Include timestamps and specific details. This external record becomes your anchor to reality when your internal compass is being manipulated. The triangulation method. The second technique is the triangulation method, using multiple independent sources to verify your perceptions and experiences. This technique recognizes that isolated individuals are more vulnerable to reality distortion than those with diverse support networks. Triangulation works by seeking input from at least 3 different sources without connection to each other or vested interest in your situation. These sources might include trusted friends, family members, colleagues, or professionals like therapists or counselors. The key is to present the same situation to each source without revealing what the others have said. This prevents groupthink and ensures you get independent perspectives. You can be confident in your reality if all 3 sources validate your perception. If they contradict you, consider that your perception is distorted. Here's a real example. Sarah was convinced by her partner that her friends didn't really care about her and were just being polite when they showed concern for her well-being. Using triangulation, Sarah asked 3 different people, her sister, a work colleague, and a former roommate, about their perceptions of her friendships. All 3 independently confirmed that her friends genuinely cared about her and had expressed concern about changes they'd noticed in her behavior. This triangulation helped Sarah realize that her partner deliberately isolated her by distorting her perception of her support network. The triangulation method is particularly effective against gaslighting, because gaslighters typically try to isolate their victims and become their only source of truth. Maintaining multiple independent reality checks makes it much harder for anyone to distort your perception of reality. Protection strategy. Identify 3 people in your life whom you trust to give you honest feedback. These should be people who don't know each other well and have no agenda regarding your situation. Use them as reality checks when you're questioning your perceptions. The baseline comparison system. The third technique is the baseline comparison system. Establishing your usual patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving to recognize when something is off. This technique creates a detailed mental and emotional baseline profile when you're functioning well. Your baseline includes patterns like how you typically make decisions, your usual emotional responses to different situations, your regular sleep and energy patterns, your typical social behaviors, and your standard thought processes and cognitive abilities. When questioning your sanity, you can compare your current state to your established baseline. Significant deviations might indicate either genuine mental health changes that need attention or external factors that are disrupting your normal functioning. I helped a client named David establish his baseline after he started questioning whether he was becoming paranoid about his workplace. We documented his normal decision-making process, typical stress responses, and usual social interactions at work. When David compared his current experiences to his baseline, he discovered that his paranoia was heightened awareness in response to real workplace bullying. His instincts were functioning normally. He correctly identified threats that others tried to convince him didn't exist. The baseline comparison system is beneficial for distinguishing between appropriate responses to genuinely threatening situations and inappropriate paranoia or anxiety. If your responses match your standard patterns for dealing with stress, you're responding appropriately to real circumstances. Protection strategy. Create a detailed description of how you function when you're mentally and emotionally healthy. Include your decision-making process, stress responses, social patterns, and cognitive abilities. Update this baseline periodically and use it as a reference point when you're questioning your mental state. The external validation audit. The fourth technique is the external validation audit, systematically examining the sources of information that shape your self-perception and reality. This technique recognizes that external sources heavily influence our understanding of reality, and some of those sources might have agendas that don't serve our well-being. The audit involves identifying all the sources influencing your perception of yourself and your situation. Family members, friends, romantic partners, colleagues, media consumption, social media feeds, and professional advisors. For each source, you evaluate its credibility, potential biases, and track record of accuracy. You then categorize these sources into 3 groups: trusted validators, sources with high credibility and your best interests at heart; neutral sources, sources with no particular agenda regarding you; and potentially compromised sources, sources that might have reasons to distort your reality. I worked with a woman named Lisa who was convinced she was too sensitive and overreacting to her family's treatment of her. When we conducted an external validation audit, we discovered that this message came exclusively from family members who benefited from her not setting boundaries. Meanwhile, neutral sources, her therapist, close friends outside the family, and even casual acquaintances, consistently validated that her emotional responses were appropriate and that her family's behavior was problematic. The external validation audit revealed that Lisa's reality was being systematically distorted by those who had the most to gain from her self-doubt. Once she recognized this pattern, she could trust her perceptions and take appropriate action to protect herself. Protection strategy. List all the sources that influence your self-perception and reality. Evaluate each source's credibility, potential biases, and track record. Pay special attention to patterns where specific sources consistently undermine your confidence, while others validate your perceptions. The cognitive consistency check. The fifth technique is the cognitive consistency check, examining whether your thoughts, feelings, and perceptions are internally consistent and logically coherent. This technique helps you distinguish between genuine mental health concerns and temporary confusion caused by external manipulation or stress. The check involves examining several dimensions of consistency. Logical consistency. Do your thoughts follow logical patterns? Emotional consistency. Are your feelings appropriate to the situations that triggered them? Temporal consistency. Are your memories and perceptions stable over time? And behavioral consistency. Do your actions align with your stated values and goals? There should be general consistency across these dimensions when your cognitive processes function normally. Significant inconsistencies might indicate either external manipulation that's creating confusion or genuine mental health issues that need professional attention. Here's how this worked for a client named Robert. He was convinced he was going crazy because he had thoughts and feelings that seemed completely unlike his usual self. Using the cognitive consistency check, we examined each dimension of his experience. We discovered that his thoughts were logically consistent and his emotions were appropriate to his circumstances, but a manipulative supervisor had systematically undermined his self-perception. The inconsistency wasn't in Robert's mind. It was between his accurate perceptions and the false narrative his supervisor had created about his competence. The cognitive consistency check helped Robert realize that his mental processes were functioning normally, but he was being fed false information about himself that created the appearance of inconsistency. Protection strategy. Regularly examine your thoughts, feelings, and perceptions for internal consistency. When you notice inconsistencies, investigate whether they stem from genuine changes in your mental state or from external sources that might be feeding you false information about yourself or your situation. The reality anchor system. The sixth technique is the reality anchor system, which establishes fixed reference points that remain stable regardless of external manipulation or internal confusion. These anchors serve as unchanging touchstones you can return to when everything else feels uncertain. Reality anchors can include core values that define you, fundamental facts about your life history, relationships with people who have known you for years, professional or personal achievements that are objectively verifiable, and physical evidence of your capabilities and character. The key is to identify anchors that are difficult for others to manipulate or for your mind to distort. These become your psychological bedrock when everything else feels unstable. I helped a client named Jennifer establish reality anchors after her ex-husband had systematically gaslighted her for 3 years. He had convinced her that she was unstable, unreliable, and couldn't be trusted to make good decisions. Jennifer's reality anchors included her successful 15-year career as a nurse, objectively verifiable competence, her close relationship with her sister, who had known her since childhood, her volunteer work with a local charity, evidence of her character, and written performance reviews from her job, external validation of her capabilities. When Jennifer felt overwhelmed by self-doubt, she would return to these anchors. They reminded her of who she was, independent of her ex-husband's manipulative narrative. Over time, these anchors helped her rebuild confidence in her perceptions and judgment. Protection strategy. Identify 5 to 7 reality anchors in your life, things that represent your true character, capabilities, and history that can't easily be manipulated or distorted. Write them down and refer to them when you question your fundamental sense of self. The professional reality check. The seventh and final technique is the professional reality check. Using qualified mental health professionals to help distinguish between genuine psychological issues and manufactured confusion. This technique recognizes that sometimes you need expert help to sort out what's real and what isn't. The key is finding professionals who understand the difference between mental health symptoms and the effects of psychological manipulation. Not all therapists are trained to recognize gaslighting, emotional abuse, or other forms of psychological warfare that can mimic mental health conditions. When seeking a professional reality check, look for therapists who specialize in trauma, abuse recovery, or manipulation awareness. Be prepared to provide documentation from your other reality testing techniques. This helps the professional understand your situation more quickly and accurately. I often work with clients who have been told by previous therapists that they need to take responsibility for their part in abusive relationships, or that their perceptions of manipulation are paranoid thinking. These responses from untrained professionals can worsen the distortion of reality. A properly trained professional will help you distinguish between appropriate responses to genuinely threatening situations versus paranoid thinking, normal emotional reactions to abnormal treatment versus mental health symptoms, and accurate perceptions of manipulation versus distorted thinking patterns. The professional reality check is critical when you're dealing with sophisticated manipulation that's designed to mimic mental health symptoms. Some manipulators are skilled enough to create confusion that even experienced individuals can't sort out independently. Protection strategy. Research therapists in your area who specialize in abuse recovery, trauma, or manipulation awareness. Even if you don't think you need therapy, having a professional you can consult for reality testing can be invaluable when you're questioning your perceptions. Integration and implementation. Now that you know all 7 reality testing techniques, let's discuss integrating them into a comprehensive system for protecting your sanity. The key is to use multiple techniques simultaneously. No single method is foolproof, but together, they create a robust defense against reality distortion. Start with the documentation protocol and baseline comparison system. These create the foundation for all other techniques. Then, add the triangulation method and external validation audit to get outside perspectives on your experiences. Use the cognitive consistency check regularly to monitor your mental state and establish reality anchors that you can return to when everything else feels uncertain. Finally, identify a qualified professional for those situations that require expert help. Remember that reality testing isn't about being paranoid or suspicious of everyone around you. It's about maintaining your ability to trust your perceptions while remaining open to feedback and correction when appropriate. The goal is to develop what I call confident humility. Confidence in your ability to perceive reality accurately, combined with humility about the possibility that you might sometimes be wrong. This balance protects you from both manipulation and self-deception. Your sanity is your most precious possession, and in a world full of people who would manipulate your reality for their benefit, you need these tools to protect yourself. The 7 techniques I've shared today aren't just theoretical concepts. They're practical tools that have helped thousands of people reclaim their mental clarity. In the comments below, tell me, which of these reality testing techniques resonates most with you? Have you ever questioned your sanity, only to discover later that you were being manipulated? Share your experience without identifying details to help others recognize similar situations. If this video helped you understand the difference between genuine mental health concerns and manufactured confusion, share it with someone who might need these tools. Knowledge is our best defense against those who would distort our reality. Next week, we're diving into the manipulation memory, how abusers rewrite history. We'll explore how manipulators alter your memories and how to protect your personal history from being rewritten. Remember, your perceptions matter, your experiences are valid, and your sanity is worth protecting. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Hit subscribe and the bell icon to join our community of reality defenders. Like this video if it gave you tools to protect your mental clarity, and I'll see you next week, where we'll continue building your defenses against psychological manipulation. Stay grounded, stay questioning, and remember that reality testing is your most potent weapon in the battle for your mind.